Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
My wedding day was supposed to be the happiest moment of my life, until my sister hijacked it with a surprise announcement that left everyone speechless. And that wasn't even the worst part. She later demanded that I pay for her baby shower. For as long as I can remember, I've dreamed of the perfect wedding. It wasn't just about the dress or the flowers. It was the whole experience. I wanted an elegant ceremony, the kind you see in movies, where everything feels magical. And when I met Jake, I knew he was the one who would make that dream a reality. Jake and I worked hard to save for our wedding. Every penny was accounted for. We both agreed, if we were going to do this, we were going to do it right. We spent countless weekends visiting venues, sampling cakes, and debating whether gold or rose gold accents would look better against the table settings. By the time the big day rolled around, everything was meticulously planned to the last detail. I woke up that morning feeling like I was on top of the world. My bridesmaids and I were holed up in the bridal suite, sipping champagne while the hair and makeup team worked their magic. The vibe was light and joyful, exactly what I'd hoped for. My mom popped in periodically to take pictures, and even Jake's mom sent a sweet text wishing me luck. Everything was falling into place. Then Mia arrived. Mia is my younger sister, and to say we have a complicated relationship would be an understatement. She's always been the attention seeker in the family, the kind of person who craves the spotlight, even if it means stepping on someone else to get there. Despite our differences, I'd made a conscious effort to include her in every part of the wedding planning. She was one of my bridesmaids, after all, and I wanted to believe she could rise to the occasion. But as soon as she walked into the bridal suite, I knew something was off. Mia looked different, not physically, but in the way she carried herself. Her usual bubbly demeanor was replaced with something muted. She gave me a quick hug and muttered, "Congrats," before plopping down in the corner with her phone. "What's up with her?" "My maid of honor," Ashley whispered. I shrugged, trying to brush it off. Maybe she's just nervous. The hours ticked by, and I focused on soaking in the excitement of the day. My makeup was flawless, the dress fit like a dream, and the energy in the room was buzzing. Every now and then, I glanced over at Mia, hoping she'd snap out of whatever funk she was in, but she stayed glued to her phone, scrolling with an expression I couldn't quite read. At one point, I tried to engage her in conversation. "How are you feeling, Mia? Everything okay?" She looked up, startled, as if I'd caught her off guard. "Yeah, fine. Just, a lot going on." Her answer didn't sit right with me, but I didn't have the energy to press her. It was my wedding day, and I wasn't going to let anything, or anyone, bring me down. When it was finally time to head to the ceremony, the bridal suite erupted into a flurry of activity. My bridesmaids gathered their bouquets. The photographer snapped pictures of me stepping into my heels, and my mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "You look beautiful," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thanks, Mom," I replied, feeling a lump in my throat. As I walked out of the suite, Mia fell in step beside me. For a brief moment, it felt like the old days, just the two of us side by side like sisters should be. "You really do look amazing," she said softly. "Thanks," I said, smiling at her. For the first time that day, I thought maybe I'd been wrong about her mood. Maybe she was just nervous, like I'd been earlier. But as we approached the aisle, I couldn't shake the lingering feeling that something wasn't quite right. And I had no idea just how right I was. Mia has always been the family's firecracker, the life of the party, the attention grabber, the one who couldn't let a moment pass without making it about her. Growing up, her antics were a constant in my life. If I was performing in a school play, she'd fake a dramatic fall in the audience just to pull eyes off the stage. At family gatherings, she'd interrupt heartfelt toasts with loud jokes or accidental spills. As frustrating as it was, I chalked it up to her personality. She wasn't malicious, just needy. And over the years, I learned to brush it off. But when Mia walked into the bridal suite that morning, her demeanor wasn't the usual boisterous energy I'd come to expect. She was quiet, eerily so. She gave me a quick hug, barely making eye contact, muttered a half-hearted, "You look amazing," and then plopped down in a chair, glued to her phone. No jokes, no loud interruptions, no attempt to charm my bridesmaids. Just silence. At first, I was almost relieved. Maybe she'd turned over a new leaf, I thought. Maybe she'd finally realized today wasn't about her. But as the morning went on, the silence felt more like a storm brewing than a genuine change in behavior. "Mia, can you help me with this?" I asked at one point, holding out a necklace I was struggling to clasp. She glanced up, hesitated, and then said, "Oh, sure." Her hands fumbled with the clasp, and for a moment, I thought I saw her biting her lip as if holding back something she wanted to say. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah," she said quickly, stepping back as soon as the necklace was secured. Why wouldn't it be? I didn't push her, but the way she avoided my gaze stuck with me. This wasn't like her. If Mia was upset, she'd usually make it everyone's problem. If she was happy, she'd make sure the whole room knew. But this version of Mia, reserved and distant, felt like a stranger. As the morning wore on, I couldn't help but notice her strange behavior creeping into little moments. She kept stepping out of the room to take calls, returning with a strange smile that didn't reach her eyes. During photos with the bridesmaids, she stood stiffly at the edge of the group, not even bothering to fake enthusiasm. Ashley, my maid of honor, leaned over to me during a break in photos. "What's up with Mia today?" she whispered. "She's acting weird?" "I don't know," I admitted. I asked her if she was okay, but she brushed it off. Ashley raised an eyebrow. "You don't think she's planning something, do you?" The thought made my stomach twist. Mia had a long history of pulling stunts, but surely she wouldn't try anything on my wedding day, right? "Let's hope not," I said with a nervous laugh, though deep down, I wasn't so sure. Then there was the moment with the veil. I just finished getting my makeup done and was about to put on my dress when my mom handed Mia my veil to hold for a moment. Instead of simply placing it on the table, Mia held it up to her head and looked at herself in the mirror. "Careful with that," I said, half joking. "That's my something new." Mia turned to me, a strange smile on her face. "You know, I always wondered what I'd look like as a bride," she said, still holding the veil in place. Ashley shot me a look, but I forced a laugh. "Well, today's not about wondering, Mia. It's about celebrating." Mia rolled her eyes and handed me the veil. "Relax," she said. I was just kidding, but the unease didn't leave me. When it was finally time to head to the ceremony, I tried to focus on the excitement of the day. My dad came to escort me to the car, and as I walked out of the suite, I noticed Mia lingering behind. "You coming?" I asked, pausing in the doorway. "Yeah, just give me a second," she said, her tone distracted. I hesitated, feeling that nagging voice in the back of my head again, but I told myself it was nothing. After all, what could she possibly do now? I had no idea that the strange look she gave me as I walked away would haunt me for the rest of the day. The ceremony went off without a hitch. As I walked down the aisle, I felt like I was floating. Jake looked incredible in his tux, his smile so warm and genuine that it brought tears to my eyes. The way he looked at me as I approached him made everything, every late night of planning and every penny we'd spent, completely worth it. The vows were perfect. Every word felt like it was etched into my heart forever. As we exchanged rings, I couldn't help but glance around at the crowd of smiling faces. Everyone seemed genuinely happy for us. Even Mia, seated near the front, appeared to be clapping along enthusiastically. For the first time that day, I allowed myself to believe that maybe my earlier suspicions about her behavior had been wrong. The ceremony ended with a flurry of hugs, photos, and congratulations. I was on cloud nine. Everything was unfolding exactly as I dreamed. The reception began with the usual excitement. Toasts, dinner, and plenty of laughter. Jake and I made our rounds, thanking guests for coming and soaking up the love from friends and family. Everything was falling into place perfectly, or so I thought. When it was time for our first dance, I felt the nerves flutter in my stomach as Jake led me onto the dance floor. The lights dimmed, and the soft melody of our favorite song filled the room. As we swayed together, it felt like the rest of the world melted away. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted Mia near the DJ booth. She was leaning in close, whispering something to the DJ with a wild, animated look on her face. My stomach tightened with unease. "Do you see that?" I whispered to Jake, trying to keep my smile intact for the crowd. "What?" he asked, glancing over my shoulder. "Mia. She's talking to the DJ. I don't know what she's doing, but let's just enjoy the moment," Jake said gently, pulling me closer. "Whatever it is, it can wait." He was right. I tried to push the nagging feeling aside and focus on the music, the lights, and the warmth of Jake's arms around me. But something told me Mia wasn't done. The song ended, and the crowd erupted into applause. Jake and I bowed dramatically, laughing as we made our way off the dance floor. Just as we were about to take our seats, the DJ's voice boomed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special announcement tonight." The room quieted instantly. My heart sank as Mia stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand, her face beaming like she'd just won an award. "What is she doing?" I muttered, frozen in place. Jake's grip on my hand tightened. "I have no idea," he said, his voice low. Mia cleared her throat, looking around the room with an expression that screamed self-importance. Hi, everyone. First of all, I just want to say how amazing my sister looks tonight. Isn't she gorgeous? The crowd cheered, and I forced a tight smile, wondering where this was going. And Jake, Mia continued, turning to him with a grin. You're so lucky to have her. Seriously, she's one of a kind. I clenched my jaw, willing her to get off the stage. But instead of wrapping it up, she kept going. While we're all here to celebrate their love, she said, her voice dripping with excitement, I have a little announcement of my own. No. My heart was pounding. Mia paused for dramatic effect, milking the moment as the room collectively leaned in. I'm pregnant, she declared, throwing her arms into the air as if she'd just delivered the best news in the world. Gasps rippled through the room, followed by scattered applause. I stood there in stunned silence, unable to process what had just happened. Jake leaned in, his voice low and furious. What the hell is she doing? I shook my head, my lips pressed tightly together. My mind was spinning. This was my wedding day, my moment, and Mia had just hijacked it to make her announcement. The crowd was now buzzing with excitement, guests turning to one another and whispering. People began getting up from their seats to congratulate Mia, surrounding her with hugs and questions about the baby. The spotlight, which had been firmly on Jake and me just moments ago, had shifted entirely to her. Ashley stormed over to me, her face red with anger. Do you want me to say something to her? She hissed. No, I said quietly, my voice trembling. It'll only make it worse. Jake put his arm around me, trying to shield me from the chaos unfolding around us. We'll get through this, he whispered. But the hurt in his voice was unmistakable. I forced myself to smile as we made our way back to our seats, pretending not to notice the guests who were still fawning over Mia. Inside, though, I was seething. Mia had stolen my moment, and I had no idea how or if I could ever forgive her. Mia stood on that stage, the microphone gripped in her hand like it was her scepter. Her grin was so wide, so artificial, that it made my stomach turn. I just wanted to say how much I love my big sister and how happy I am for her and Jake, she began, her voice syrupy sweet. I forced a polite smile, though my insides churned. What was she doing? Was this some kind of toast? Why was she standing there, dragging out her words like she had the floor to herself? And while we're all here to celebrate their love, she continued, glancing dramatically around the room, I have a little announcement of my own. I felt the blood drain from my face. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out the quiet murmur of the crowd. Jake's grip on my hand tightened as I struggled to stay calm. I didn't know what she was about to say, but I could feel it. This wasn't going to end well. I'm pregnant, Mia declared, her voice ringing out like a bell. She threw her arms in the air, beaming as if she'd just delivered the best news anyone had ever heard. The room erupted into gasps, quickly followed by applause. I stood there, frozen, as the weight of her words settled over me. Jake leaned in, his voice low and laced with anger. She didn't. Tell me she didn't just do that. She did, I whispered, barely able to form the words. The buzz in the room grew louder as guests began whispering and turning to one another. A few people stood and rushed to Mia, congratulating her like she was the guest of honor. Even our parents were on their feet, grinning ear to ear as they embraced her. I watched in disbelief as my mom gushed over Mia, tears in her eyes. This is such wonderful news, she exclaimed, completely ignoring the fact that it was my wedding day. Jake squeezed my hand again. Do you want me to say something? He asked, his jaw clenched. No, I said, my voice trembling. It'll only make things worse. I glanced back at the stage. Mia was soaking in the attention, her grin never wavering. She didn't even glance in my direction. Ashley stormed over to me, her face flushed with anger. I cannot believe her, she hissed. Do you want me to drag her off that stage? No, I said again, though I wanted nothing more than to scream at Mia in front of everyone. It's too late now. The damage is done. I felt trapped. This was supposed to be my moment, the culmination of years of planning and saving and dreaming. And Mia had stolen it from me in the blink of an eye. As Jake and I made our way back to our seats, I tried to compose myself, but the lump in my throat made it nearly impossible. I could feel the stares of our guests, the pity in their eyes as they glanced between me and Mia. For the rest of the evening, the focus remained firmly on Mia. People hovered around her, asking about the baby, offering name suggestions, and speculating about whether it would be a boy or a girl. Meanwhile, Jake and I sat at our table, trying to smile through the pain. Even during the speeches, the attention kept drifting back to Mia. One of our relatives raised their glass and said, "Here's to new beginnings, for the happy couple and for Mia's growing family." Jake's hand shot out to steady me as I nearly spilled my drink in frustration. By the time the reception ended, I was emotionally drained. Jake and I climbed into our getaway car, and the second the door closed, I burst into tears. "She ruined it," I sobbed, burying my face in my hands. "She made the whole day about her." Jake pulled me into his arms, his own frustration evident. "We'll talk about it later," he said. "Right now, let's focus on us. It's still our wedding night." I nodded, trying to push the pain aside. But deep down, I knew I wouldn't be able to let this go. Mia had crossed the line, and things between us would never be the same again. The second Mia made her announcement, it felt like a switch had flipped in the room. People who had been laughing, dancing, and celebrating our marriage suddenly had a new focus. One by one, they flocked to her, buzzing with excitement over the news of her pregnancy. At first, I tried to stay composed. I smiled politely as guests congratulated her, even though my heart felt like it was breaking. Jake and I stood awkwardly by the sweetheart table, a place that was supposed to be our little haven for the evening. Instead, it became a front-row seat to Mia's impromptu baby shower. "She's glowing," one of my aunts gushed as she hugged Mia. "Do you know if it's a boy or a girl yet?" another guest asked, eyes wide with curiosity. "No idea yet," Mia said, her voice bubbly. "But I have a feeling it's a boy. Don't you think?" The entire time, she didn't once glance my way. It was like she'd forgotten why we were all there in the first place. As the evening wore on, things only got worse. By the time the speeches began, I was clinging to the hope that at least this part of the night would be about Jake and me. But even then, Mia managed to steal the spotlight. The first speech, given by Jake's best man, was heartfelt and focused on us. For a brief moment, I felt the glow of being celebrated again. But then my dad stood up to speak. "I just want to say how proud I am of both my daughters," he began, his voice brimming with emotion. "Today is such a special day for our family. Not only are we celebrating Jake and my beautiful daughter's love, but we're also welcoming the news of a new addition to the family." I froze. My stomach twisted as the room erupted into applause. Jake's hand clenched around mine, his jaw tightening. "And Mia," my dad continued, turning toward her, "we're all so thrilled for you. You're going to be an amazing mom." The spotlight that was supposed to be ours was now firmly on her. By the time my maid of honor, Ashley, took the mic, I was on the verge of tears. But Ashley, bless her, wasn't about to let Mia steal the entire show. "Before I say anything else," Ashley said, her voice sharp, "I want to remind everyone why we're here tonight. This is about celebrating two amazing people who are starting their lives together. So let's raise our glasses to the bride and groom, the real stars of the night." The crowd clapped, though I noticed a few awkward glances toward Mia. She shifted in her seat, her smile faltering for a moment before she recovered. Ashley continued her toast, but the damage had already been done. No matter how heartfelt her words were, the energy in the room had shifted. My wedding wasn't about me and Jake anymore. It was about Mia and her baby. By the end of the night, I was barely holding it together. As Jake and I climbed into the getaway car, the tears I'd been holding back all evening finally spilled over. "She ruined it," I sobbed, my voice cracking. "She made the whole day about her." Jake pulled me into his arms, his expression a mix of anger and sadness. "I know," he said quietly. "I'm so sorry." "She didn't even care," I continued, my words tumbling out between sobs. "She didn't care that it was my wedding, my moment. She just took it." Jake didn't say anything, but I could tell he was just as upset as I was. He rubbed my back, letting me cry until the car pulled up to our hotel. The next morning, I woke up feeling drained. Jake and I had planned a small brunch with close family and friends before we left for our honeymoon, but the thought of seeing Mia again made my stomach churn. "Do we have to go?" I asked Jake as I sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window. He sat down beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "We don't have to do anything we don't want to," he said. "But if we don't go, she'll probably spin it into some story about how we're the ones being unreasonable." I sighed, knowing he was right. Mia had a way of making herself the victim in every situation, and I didn't want to give her any ammunition. When we arrived at the brunch, Mia was already there, chatting animatedly with a group of relatives. My mom was sitting beside her, beaming as she rubbed Mia's shoulder. "Isn't it exciting?" my mom said as we approached the table. "A baby! Can you believe it?" I forced a tight smile. "It's great news," I said flatly, though my voice lacked any real enthusiasm. Mia turned to me with that same wide grin she'd worn all night. I hope you're not mad, she said, her tone dripping with faux innocence. I didn't mean to overshadow your wedding or anything. I just thought it would be fun to share the news while everyone was together. Fun? I repeated, my voice sharper than I intended. Jake quickly stepped in, placing a hand on my back. Let's just enjoy the brunch, he said calmly, though I could see the tension in his jaw. I bit back the retort I wanted to throw at Mia and sat down, determined to get through the meal without causing a scene. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Mia had crossed a line, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. After the wedding, I needed space. The sting of Mia's betrayal lingered like a wound that refused to heal. For weeks, I avoided her calls, ignored her texts, and skipped family dinners to steer clear of her. I wasn't ready to face her smug grin or her complete disregard for what she'd done. Jake was supportive as always, though I could tell he was just as frustrated. She owes you an apology, he said one evening as we sat on the couch. And until she gives you one, you have every right to keep your distance. I nodded, knowing he was right. But what made it worse was that Mia didn't even seem to care. There were no apologies, no attempts to make amends. If anything, she acted like nothing had happened, like we were still the best of friends. Then, out of the blue, Mia called me. I stared at my phone for a long time before answering, my stomach twisting with apprehension. Hello? Hey, big sis. Mia chirped, her voice sickeningly cheerful. Mia, I said cautiously. What do you want? Oh, don't be like that, she said with a laugh. I was just thinking it's been a while since we talked. How are you? I clenched my teeth, resisting the urge to snap. I'm fine. What's up? Well, I actually need a favor, she said, her tone shifting to something lighter, almost sing-song. I sighed. What kind of favor? I need help with my baby shower, she exclaimed, as if she were sharing the most exciting news in the world. I froze. Your baby shower? Yeah, Mia said, completely unfazed. I figured since you're so good at planning events, like your wedding, you'd be the perfect person to take care of it. My jaw tightened. Mia, I'm not sure I'm the right person for that. Of course you are, she said, brushing off my protest. You've got an eye for detail, and I'm sure you still have some of that leftover wedding money, right? You could use that to cover the costs. It's not like you'll miss it. My grip on the phone tightened as a wave of anger surged through me. Mia, are you seriously asking me to pay for your baby's showers? Why not? She replied, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. You're my sister. Isn't that what family does? I couldn't hold back anymore. Mia, you hijacked my wedding to announce your pregnancy, I snapped. You made the entire day about you, and now you expect me to spend more money I saved for years, to throw you a party? Are you out of your mind? There was a long pause on her end before she finally said, wow, I didn't realize you were still so bitter about the wedding. I thought we'd moved past that. Moved past it? I repeated, my voice rising. You haven't even apologized, Mia. You haven't once acknowledged how selfish and hurtful your actions were. She sighed dramatically. Look, I didn't mean to ruin your wedding. But honestly, don't you think you're overreacting? It's not like I planned it or anything. It just happened. I let out a bitter laugh. It just happened? You took the microphone, Mia. You made a conscious decision to steal my moment. And now you want me to reward you for it? She huffed. You know what? Forget it. I'll figure it out on my own. I just thought you'd want to support me. Before I could respond, she hung up, leaving me seething. I couldn't believe her audacity. It wasn't enough that she'd ruined my wedding. Now she wanted me to foot the bill for her baby shower and act like everything was fine. When I told Jake about the conversation later that evening, he shook his head in disbelief. She's unbelievable, he said. You don't owe her anything. If she wants a baby shower, she can plan it herself. Over the next few days, I started getting calls from my parents. Why are you being so difficult with Mia? My mom asked during one particularly frustrating conversation. She's pregnant, for goodness sake. She needs your support right now. I'm not being difficult, I said through gritted teeth. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference. Well, she feels like you're punishing her, my mom said. And honestly, I think you need to let go of this grudge about the wedding. Family is more important than one day. One day? I repeated, stunned. Mom, that was my wedding. The one day that was supposed to be about me and Jake. Mia made it about her. And now you want me to reward her for it? My mom sighed heavily. I'm not saying what she did was right. But she's your sister, and she needs you. It felt like I was banging my head against a wall. No matter how many times I explained my side of the story, my parents refused to see it. They kept pushing me to help Mia, insisting that family obligations outweighed my feelings. But for the first time in my life, I stood my ground. I'm sorry, I told them, but I'm not planning or paying for Mia's baby shower. If that makes me the bad guy, so be it. After hanging up, I felt a strange mix of anger and relief. Saying no wasn't easy, especially when it came to my family. But I knew I was doing the right thing. Mia had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. This time, I was putting myself first. Mia's audacity was like nothing I'd ever seen. Her request for me to plan and pay for her baby shower was laughable if it wasn't so infuriating. You want me to spend my money Jake and I saved for years, to throw you a party after what you did at my weddings? I said, my voice sharp with disbelief. She didn't even flinch. Yes, she said simply, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. You're my sister, and I figured you'd want to help. I mean, I was so supportive of you at your wedding. I couldn't hold back the bitter laugh that escaped me. Supportive? Mia, you hijacked my wedding. You turned the entire day into your personal announcement party, and now you have the nerve to ask me for more? Are you serious? Mia sighed like I was the unreasonable one. I didn't hijack anything, she said defensively. I made a little announcement, that's all. It wasn't my fault everyone got so excited. You took the microphone, Mia, I snapped. You planned to make that announcement. You knew exactly what you were doing, and now you expect me to act like it never happened. She rolled her eyes, her voice dripping with irritation. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I didn't mean to overshadow your wedding. Okay, but honestly, you should be happy for me. This is a big deal. So was my wedding, I shot back. The one day that was supposed to be about me and Jake, and you couldn't even let me have that. And now you want me to reward you for it. Her expression hardened. You're being selfish, she said, crossing her arms. I thought family was supposed to support each other. Or does that only apply when it benefits you? That was it. I'd had enough. Mia, I've spent my whole life dealing with your selfishness, I said, my voice shaking with anger. You've always made everything about you, no matter who you hurt in the process. But this time you crossed the line. You don't get to ruin my wedding and then demand that I spend my time and money on you. It's not happening. She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Wow, she said finally, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I guess I know where I stand now. You're standing in the same place you've always stood, at the center of your own little universe, I said coldly. But not anymore, Mia. I'm done. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, but the confrontation was far from over. Over the next few days, my phone was bombarded with texts and calls from family members. She's your sister, my mom said during one of our many heated conversations. Can't you just let this go and help her out? She's pregnant, for goodness sake. She's also manipulative, I said firmly. And I'm not going to let her take advantage of me again. You're overreacting, my mom insisted. Yes, what she did at your wedding was wrong, but she's under a lot of stress right now. She needs her family to step up. What about what I need? I countered. Why is it always about Mia? Why is it okay for her to take, but the second I stand up for myself, I'm the bad guy? My mom sighed heavily. I'm not saying you're the bad guy. I just think you're being too hard on her. No, Mom, I said, my voice unwavering. I'm finally being honest with her. And with myself. Jake was my rock through it all as always. I'm proud of you, he said one night as we sat on the couch. It's not easy standing up to family, but you're doing the right thing. Then why does it feel so awful? I asked, tears welling up in my eyes. Because you care, he said gently. You want to make everyone happy, but some people can't be pleased no matter what you do. Mia's one of those people. He was right, of course. Mia had spent her entire life taking advantage of people's kindness, and I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore. A week later, I got another call from Mia. I debated whether or not to answer, but curiosity got the better of me. What do you want? I asked, my tone flat. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry, she said, though her voice lacked any real sincerity. I didn't mean to upset you. Are you apologizing because you mean it or because no one else will throw your baby shower? I asked pointedly. She hesitated, and that told me everything I needed to know. I've said my piece, Mia, I said firmly. I'm not planning your shower, and I'm not paying for it. You're going to have to figure this one out on your own. She started to argue, but I hung up before she could finish. For the first time in years, I felt like I'd taken control of my relationship with Mia. It wasn't easy, and I knew the backlash from my family would continue for a while, but it was worth it. I wasn't going to let her, or anyone else, dictate my life anymore. And as difficult as it was, drawing the line with Mia was the most freeing decision I'd ever made. When Mia realized I wasn't going to cave, she did what she always does. She turned to my parents. Within hours of our last conversation, my phone started ringing. It was my mom, and the guilt tripping began before I could even say hello. "I don't understand why you're being so difficult," she said, her tone sharp. "Mia is pregnant. She needs support, not more stress." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath to steady myself. "Mom, this isn't about stress. It's about boundaries. She hijacked my wedding, and now she expects me to throw her a party? That's not fair." "She didn't hijack anything," Mom said defensively. "She was just excited. And honestly, it's not that big of a deal. People were happy for her. Why can't you just let it go?" "Because it was my wedding day, Mom," I said, my voice shaking with frustration. "The one day that was supposed to be about me and Jake. And now she's trying to make me feel guilty for saying no to her. I won't do it." My dad called later that evening, his approach slightly less confrontational. "Listen," he said, "I get where you're coming from. What Mia did at the wedding wasn't right. Even I told her it was bad timing. But she's still your sister. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive her?" "I'm not asking for a grudge match, Dad," I replied. "But forgiveness doesn't mean letting her walk all over me. She's made it clear she doesn't think she did anything wrong. How am I supposed to reward that behavior?" He sighed. "It's not about rewarding her. It's about keeping the peace. Your mom's really upset about all this, and Mia feels like you're punishing her." "Punishing her?" I laughed bitterly. "She hasn't faced a single consequence for what she did. All I'm doing is saying no to being her doormat." "I know it's complicated," he admitted, "but family is family. You two need to find a way to work this out." The word family hung in the air like a heavy weight. It was always the fallback argument, the ultimate trump card. But this time, I wasn't letting it control me. The tension in the family escalated quickly. Some relatives sided with me, agreeing that Mia had overstepped and needed to take responsibility for her actions. Others, like my mom and a few cousins, thought I was being petty and unforgiving. "You're going to regret this someday," my mom said during yet another heated phone call. "When you have kids, you'll understand how important it is to support each other." "I already understand how important boundaries are," I shot back. "And right now, my boundary is not planning a party for someone who doesn't respect me." Mia, of course, played the victim beautifully. She told anyone who would listen that I was being cruel and jealous because she was pregnant. She conveniently left out the part where she'd stolen the spotlight on my wedding day. "She's punishing me for being happy," Mia said to one of our aunts, who later relayed the conversation to me. "I thought sisters were supposed to be there for each other, but she's just spiteful." Spiteful. That word stuck with me. Was it spiteful to stand up for myself? To say no to someone who had hurt me? I didn't think so, but the constant pushback from my family made me second-guess myself more than once. Jake, thankfully, was my anchor through all of this. "You're not being spiteful," he said one evening as we sat on the couch. "You're being honest. And if people can't handle the truth, that's their problem, not yours." "But what if I'm making things worse?" I asked, my voice small. Jake shook his head. "Mia's making things worse. You've tried to set boundaries, and she refuses to respect them. That's not on you." I leaned into him, grateful for his unwavering support. But even with Jake by my side, the weight of the family drama was exhausting. Every text, every phone call, every whispered comment from relatives felt like another jab at my resolve. The final straw came during a family dinner a few weeks later. I debated skipping it altogether, but Jake convinced me to go, saying it might be a chance to clear the air. As soon as I walked in, I could feel the tension. Mia was sitting at the table, her belly just starting to show, surrounded by my mom and a few other relatives. They were fawning over her, asking about baby names and nursery themes. When I sat down, Mia barely acknowledged me. But halfway through the meal, she turned to me with a sweet but fake smile. "So, have you changed your mind about the baby shower?" she asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. The table went silent. All eyes were on me. "No, Mia," I said firmly. "I haven't." She pouted dramatically. "Wow, I guess I shouldn't have expected any different. Some people just don't understand what it means to be supportive." That was it. I set down my fork and looked her straight in the eye. "Mia, support is a two-way street. You've never apologized for what you did at my wedding. You've never even acknowledged how hurtful it was. And now you expect me to forget all of that and throw you a party? That's not how this works." The room was dead silent as Mia's face turned red. "I can't believe you're still hung up on that," she snapped. "It was just a wedding, and this is just a baby shower." I shot back, standing up. "Plan it yourself." I grabbed my things and left, Jake following close behind. As we drove home, I felt a strange mix of anger and relief. I was done playing Mia's games, and for the first time, I truly felt like I'd taken control of my life. Letting go of the guilt wasn't easy, but I knew I'd made the right decision. Sometimes, standing your ground means walking away, even from family. It was a Saturday afternoon when Mia showed up at my house unannounced. I was in the middle of folding laundry when the doorbell rang. Jake was out running errands, so it was just me at home. The sight of her on my doorstep sent an immediate wave of irritation through me. "Mia," I said, barely masking my annoyance. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk," she said, brushing past me into the house without waiting for an invitation. "Come on in, I guess," I muttered under my breath, closing the door behind her. Mia stood in the middle of my living room, arms crossed, her expression a mix of defiance and self-pity. "Why are you being so difficult?" she demanded. I blinked, caught off guard by her tone. "Difficult?" I repeated. "Mia, you stole the spotlight on my wedding day, and now you're acting like I'm the bad guy for not throwing you a baby shower. Do you not see the problem here?" She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh my God, are we still talking about the wedding? It wasn't that big of a deal. People were happy for me. Can't you just get over it?" Her words hit me like a slap in the face. "Get over it?" I said, my voice rising. "Mia, you stood up at my wedding, grabbed the microphone, and announced your pregnancy in front of everyone. You made the entire night about you. And now, instead of apologizing, you're doubling down and asking me for even more?" Mia threw up her hands. "I didn't mean to ruin anything. I thought it would be fun to share my news while the whole family was together. It's not my fault people were excited." "No, but it is your fault for choosing that moment," I snapped. "You could have told people literally any other time, but you decided to do it at my wedding because you couldn't stand not being the center of attention." "That's not true," she shot back, her cheeks flushing. "I wasn't trying to steal anything from you. I just wanted to share my happiness." "Why is that so hard for you to understand?" "Because it's not just about the wedding, Mia," I said, my voice steady but firm. "This is about how you always make everything about you. Every holiday, every family gathering, every milestone that doesn't belong to you, you find a way to insert yourself, no matter who gets hurt in the process. And I'm done enabling that behavior." Mia stared at me, her mouth opening and closing as if searching for a response. "So what are you saying?" she asked finally. "That you don't want a relationship with me anymore?" "I want a relationship where I don't feel like I'm being taken advantage of," I said honestly. "But if you can't respect my boundaries or take accountability for your actions, then yeah, maybe we need some distance." Her eyes narrowed. "You're being ridiculous," she said coldly. "I'm your sister. I've always been there for you. And now you're throwing me under the bus because of one little mistake." I laughed bitterly. "One little mistake? Mia, this isn't just about the wedding. This is about a lifetime of you taking and expecting everyone else to pick up the pieces. You don't get to call me ridiculous for finally standing up for myself." She threw up her hands again. "Fine. If that's how you feel, then maybe we do need some distance," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I guess I'll just figure everything out on my own, since you're too busy being empowered or whatever." "Good," I said, crossing my arms. "That's exactly what you should do." Mia stood there for a moment, clearly expecting me to back down. When I didn't, she let out a frustrated huff and stormed out the door, slamming it behind her. The silence that followed was deafening, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of relief. I'd stood my ground, and I hadn't let her manipulate me into giving in. When Jake came home later, I told him about the encounter. He listened intently, his expression a mix of pride and anger. "Good for you," he said, pulling me into a hug. "She needed to hear that, and I'm glad you didn't let her push you around." "Me too," I said, though part of me still felt conflicted. "But it's hard, you know? She's my sister. I don't want to cut her out of my life completely, but I also can't keep letting her walk all over me." Jake nodded. "It's okay to feel conflicted. Boundaries are hard, especially with family. But you're doing what's right for you, and that's what matters." Over the next few days, I braced myself for more fallout, but surprisingly Mia kept her distance. I knew it wouldn't last. She thrived on drama, and I doubted she'd stay quiet for long. But for now, I was focusing on myself. Standing up to Mia had been one of the hardest things I'd ever done, but it was also one of the most freeing. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally taking control of my own life. And I wasn't about to give that up. Not for Mia, not for anyone. In the end, I stood firm. Mia didn't get her baby shower planned by me, and I didn't spend a single dime on her. She eventually threw her own shower, which my mom casually mentioned over the phone weeks later. "She did a nice job," Mom said, her tone carefully neutral. It wasn't as extravagant as yours would have been, but it turned out fine. I'm glad it worked out, I replied flatly. I wasn't about to give her an inch. Mom hesitated, then added, she missed you though. It would have meant a lot if you'd been there. I didn't even bother responding to that one. I knew my absence would be spun into another point of contention, another example of how I was punishing Mia. But the truth was I didn't care. For once, I wasn't letting guilt dictate my decisions. In the weeks following Mia's baby shower, life settled into a new normal. My relationship with her was strained. Conversations were short and civil, limited to family gatherings where I kept a polite distance. She still played the victim, dropping passive-aggressive comments about how some people didn't understand the meaning of family. I let them slide off me like water on glass. Jake and I focused on our life together, which felt like a welcome reprieve from the drama. We spent weekends exploring new hobbies, planning small trips, and building the foundation for the life we dreamed of. One night, as we were curled up on the couch, Jake turned to me and said, "You know, I'm really proud of you." I looked at him surprised. "For what?" "For standing up for yourself," he said simply. "For putting us first." His words brought tears to my eyes. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that, especially from him. Looking back, the wedding fiasco and everything that followed had been a painful learning experience. Mia's actions hurt me in ways I hadn't even realized at the time. Not just because she stole the spotlight on my big day, but because she showed me how little she respected me. But in a way, I'm grateful for it. Her behavior forced me to confront something I'd been avoiding for years: the need to set boundaries. For so long, I'd let her take and take, convincing myself it was just how she is. I thought keeping the peace was more important than standing up for myself. Now I know better. Family can be messy, complicated, and even toxic at times. And while it's easy to say family is everything, I've learned that there are limits. Just because someone is family doesn't mean they have the right to disrespect or manipulate you. Mia and I still have a long way to go, and honestly, I don't know if our relationship will ever fully recover. But that's okay. It's not my responsibility to fix everything. My wedding wasn't perfect, but it gave me something more valuable than a flawless day. It taught me to value myself. And that's a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. As for Mia, I hope she learns something too. Maybe one day, she'll realize that the world doesn't revolve around her. Until then, I'm keeping my distance and my peace of mind.